Hey everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online Paddle School. We are back here on YouTube, and today we're doing a gear review of the Tai Paddle Hiku. Tai Paddle Global reached out and sent us this new all-carbon Outrigger canoe blade. We're going to do a full rundown of the paddle, comparisons to other paddles that I use on a daily basis, as well as my personal final thoughts on the paddle in general. Thank you so much, Tai Paddles, for sending us this awesome blade. If you have any products that you would like to see us review, feel free to reach out anytime and we will try to get a gear review on YouTube for you. So the paddle was sent to us and it is broken down into 3 pieces. So we have this top handle actually attaches right here into the center shaft, and then the center shaft and the blade connect at another insert point. This makes shipping super easy, and getting this paddle from overseas to us here in the United States, breaking it down to 3 parts, likely saved a lot on shipping. The insert for this is fairly long, which means that I was able to just use hot glue on both ends, and it has a super sturdy structure. Inserts that are much smaller, you have to use epoxy since it is stronger with that bonding process. Having something a little bit more long with the surface area allows you to use something that's not as strong as epoxy and still getting a super defined grip. This is the all carbon model of the Hiku blade shape with their regular flex shaft, which is advertised to be similar in flexibility to something like wood. The stiff shaft option that they offer is designed with sprinting in mind. The centerpiece of the handle is very textured, so no matter where your hand lies here, there's a lot of grip that you can get. It is slightly oval shaped as well, which contours to the hand very ergonomically. The blade itself is super thin, so the blade face is very light. It has a very strong and pronounced dihedral here, so as you stick this blade in the water, it is going to lock onto a tremendous amount. The paddle itself is designed not to flutter as long as you're strong enough to control it. Looking at it from this angle, right, we can see this dihedral come way up as we get closer to the throat of the paddle, and you can see how razor thin this blade is. All of this helps to reduce the weight, as well as making the entry feel super smooth with a super low profile blade slicing through the water. So looking at the blade and breaking it down, it's much easier if we compare it to something else. So my other daily paddle right now is using the Viper Va'a. The Fusion paddle is the same width, but it is a little shorter of a blade in comparison. This Viper paddle is 780 square centimeters, and you can see side by side that the Hiku paddle is much larger. At its widest point, both paddles are the same width at 9.5 inches, but the actual width of the paddle on the Hiku is wider for longer as it works its way up the shaft, and it is a touch longer in general with its length. Paddle's width tells one story, but the outline of the paddle and how long it holds on to that width tells another story. That plus the overall length of the paddle determines at what depth you're putting that width into the water. We go over a lot of these concepts in our ultimate Outrigger canoe paddle guide. So to get up to speed on some of these ideas, check out that video. Looking at the Hiku itself, this is a very large blade in comparison to many paddles that are out there today. The other paddle that I use regularly is the Hippo Stick Heart Attack, and we can see that this paddle is substantially longer as well as wider even at its widest point. The purpose and the design of this blade is to help grab and feel a lot of water in order to help control your boat. This paddle comes from New Zealand, and the primary mode of transportation there is using the Va'a, the rudderless boat. Having a larger surface area helps with maintaining the canoe's glide, as well as controlling the steering of the vessel. Having a longer blade with the longer width allows you to make that connection and control the boat a little more effectively. For an OC1 where we're not using the blade to steer, since we're relying on the rudder, the blade is very large in comparison to paddles exclusively for that boat. The very round edge allows the initial entry into the water to feel very soft. Rounded edges have less surface area than squared off edges. So looking at the Hippo Stick, it is very squared at the blade tip, so its interaction with the water is very strong in comparison to that rounded edge. Initial bite on the water is not very overbearing, and it goes into the water very smoothly. As you progress to getting the whole blade into the water, you can really feel the blade size and the length in the water. So the power and engagement engagement with the stroke increases as you're completing it. This paddle has very aggressive offsets with the double bend shaft as well as at the blade. This helps a lot in releasing the blade from the water effortlessly. So as the blade initially goes into the water at the catch, it's very smooth and easy, but as the entire blade goes in, you're going to feel that big connection with the water. With these aggressive angles, as you get to the exit, the blade is going to leave the water very effortlessly. So it's an interesting dynamic. It's very easy, very powerful, and then back to easy. Versus that paradigm is slightly different with something like the hippo stick, where it is a lot of pressure at the catch and it's a little bit less energy in the power phase. There's not a lot of surface area as you submerge the entire blade, and then that exit, again, very clean with its overall angles. Finding a paddle that matches your strengths is one of the things that we try to advocate and teach paddlers. If you feel very strong in your stroke from the middle of the stroke, a blade shape like the Hiku does wonders to help accentuate many of your strengths. But if you're trying to find a lot of pressure at the front of the stroke, the blade shape and surface area, it is not designed to be very powerful in the front loading phase. It is very powerful to be strong through the middle and to the end of the stroke. In a sprinting or high-paced situation, this paddle does wonders to quickly accelerate the boat, whether you're catching a swell or racing in a sprint dynamic. For a long distance, you just have to change how you're interacting with the water. The blade itself is large enough to do much of the work for you. So as you're taking a stroke, you don't have to push down with everything you have. You just have to maintain good position, and the blade will do a lot of that effort for you in the middle of the stroke. Overall, in a team dynamic, in the two-person canoes or the six-person canoe, this larger blade does wonders as the boat is moving a little faster. Finding that pressure in the water may be a little bit more difficult, and having this larger blade surface with the aggressive angles does wonders. Controlling a boat with no rudder as you have wind and swell and tide that is going to affect the movement of the boat, having that extra length in the water to connect with allows you to navigate much smoother. The traditional OC1 with the rudder system, this can be a big blade for most users. The factor that makes the blade feel so large in the water is its overall length. You're submerging a big section of the paddle deeper in the water, so the amount of leverage that you're going to find inherently is very high. Smaller paddlers or paddlers that are less muscular, this may be too much of a blade for you. Overall, this is a wonderful product, and I am very happy that Tai Paddles has sent this to us, and I'm going to probably race the rest of the OC1 season using this paddle. If you're somewhere around in Florida and we see each other at a race, feel free to ask to borrow this paddle anytime. Thank you all so much for checking out the gear review today. Don't forget to check out the K2NOnlinePaddleSchool.com. We have over 300 videos now. We have drills, off-the-water exercises, as well as intricate technique videos breaking down the body into different parts, breaking down the stroke into different phases, as well as different skill levels for each of those topics. It is a lot of content and is designed to help you understand the big picture that you're trying to achieve with the paddle stroke. Don't forget to check out the Paddle Pursuit right here on YouTube or anywhere where you can find and listen to podcasts. Thank you all so much for the ongoing support, and we'll see you all next week.